Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if I'm using it right,
But there's many in it you might come across online.
Okay. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So we continue discussing the book Al-Arba'in Nawawiya, and last week we ended the hadith that Hadith 23 that we discussed in around 3 sessions. So today inshallah ta'ala that will be discussing the hadith that follows, with hadith that I mentioned Al-Rabi' wal-Ishrun. So hadith Al-Rabi' wal-Ishrun would be the 24th hadith in this series of An-Nawawi rahimahullah. So as the system that we'll have the hadith to be read, and then we'll have a discussion regarding the hadith, and we'll go into some detail regarding certain matters. So the hadith to be read, and then we start discussing the hadith bi-idhnillahi ta'ala.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hadith number 24, the forbiddance of oppression. عن أبي ذر الغفاري رضي الله عنه عن نبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فيما يرويه عن ربه عز وجل أنه قال: يا عبادي إني حرمت الظلم على نفسي وجعلته بينكم محرما فلا تظالموا. يا عبادي كلكم ضال إلا من هديته فاستهدوني أهدكم. يا عبادي كلكم جائع إلا من أطعمته فاستطعموني أطعمكم.
أيوة.
يا عبادي كلكم عار إلا من كسوته فاستكسوني أكسكم. يا عبادي إنكم تخطئون بالليل والنهار وأنا أغفر الذنوب جميعا فاستغفروني أغفر لكم. يا عبادي إنكم لن تبلغوا دري فتضرني ولن تبلغوا نفعي فتنفعوني. يا عبادي لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أتقى قلب رجل واحد منكم ما زاد ذلك في ملكي شيئا. يا عبادي لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أفجر قلب رجل واحد منكم ما نقص ذلك من ملكي شيئا. يا عبادي لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم قاموا في صعيد واحد فسألوني فأعطيت كل واحد مسألته نقص ذلك ما نقص ذلك مما عندي إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا دخل البحر. يا عبادي إنما هي أعمالكم أحصيها لكم ثم أوفيكم إياها فمن وجد خيرا فليحمد الله ومن وجد غير ذلك فلا يلومن إلا نفسه. إلا نفسه.
أيوة.
رواه مسلم.
جزاه الله خير.
بارك الله فيك.
ما شاء الله أبو أيوب جزاه الله خير. Your fruits.
No. On the authority of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu, on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam relayed on his Lord, the blessed, the exalted, that he said: O my servant, I have forbidden oppression for myself and I have made it forbidden amongst you, so do not oppress one another. O my servant, all of you are astray except for those I have guided, so seek guidance from me and I shall guide you. O my servants, all of you are hungry except for those I have fed, so seek food from me and I shall feed you. O my servants, all of you are naked except for those I have clothed, so seek clothing from me and I shall clothe you. O my servants, you commit sins by night and by day, and I forgive all sins, so seek forgiveness from me, and I shall forgive you. O my servants, you will never attain harming me so as to harm me, nor will you ever attain benefiting me so as to benefit me. O my servants, were the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, to be as pious as the most pious heart of any one man amongst you, it would not increase my kingdom in anything. O my servants, were the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, to be as wicked as the wickedest heart of any one man amongst you, it would not decrease my kingdom in anything. O my servants, were the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, to gather in one place and make a request of me, and I were to give everyone what he requested, it would not decrease what I have any more than a needle decreases the sea when put into it. O my servants, it is only your deeds that I charge you with, and then recompense you for them. Therefore, whoever finds good, then let him praise Allah. Whoever finds other than that should blame no one but himself. Related by a Muslim.
Alhamdulillah. So that's concerning the hadith that is read, which is Hadith Al-Rabi wal-Ishrun, which is the 24th hadith in the series by Nawawi rahimahullah. So as mentioned, as what they have titled the hadith regarding that Hurmat al-Dhulm, that this hadith, that they have labeled this hadith or titled this hadith regarding, as the hadith mentioned, it started, Ya ibadi, inni haramtu al-dhulm ala nafsi, waja'altuhu baynakum muharraman fala tudhalimu. So based upon the opening of this hadith, that of those who have worked on this book, that they have labeled this particular hadith as the hadith or the topic of this hadith that relates to the prohibition of al-dhulm. But the hadith also, it covers many other topics. So regarding concerning this hadith, that one is the hadith of Abi Dharr anhu al-Ghaffari, and also he mentioned Rawahu al-Muslim. So pick up from how we normally explain this hadith, that the first of those things is regarding discussing something regarding the Rawi of the hadith. So Abi Dharr anhu is Sahabi al-Jalil that we have somewhat mentioned previously. So he have been mentioned previously in previous hadith that he have narrated. So as for this Sahabi Abi Dharr, so as for Abi Dharr, that he mentioned, as we mentioned, as the system that is followed by Nawawi rahimahullah, that whenever he mentioned a Sahabi for the first time, that he'll mention somewhat his full name, or at least, so he mentioned his name in full, somewhat, and also his kunya. So in this case, because Abi Dharr had been mentioned previously, then he just mentioned Abi Dharr, and in some of the printed book of Abi Dharr al-Ghaffari. So he didn't mention his name in full. So as we had mentioned before regarding that this Sahabi al-Jalil, that was Abu Dharr, was Jundub ibn Junada al-Ghaffari. Jundub ibn Junada al-Ghaffari, that's his name. Abi Dharr anhu, among those Sahabi who accepted Islam in the early days of the early ones to accept or embrace Islam, where they mentioned that he was either the fourth or amongst the fifth to embrace Islam. So amongst the very early ones to have embraced Islam. And so very few people accepted Islam before him. So not many who accepted Islam before him. So amongst the early ones to accepted Islam. That in brief, that Abi Dharr anhu, that it is said regarding him that he died the 31st year of the Hijrah. So he died the 31st year of the Hijrah in a place outside of Medina. So a mother called Rubda, that a place that is outside of Medina, that he died and passed away. Then also Abi Dharr, regarding of his Abi Dharr, that known to be of those that used to give a fatwa in the time of Abu Bakr, so in the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, that he was of those who used to give fatwa. Also, the same continued in the time of Omar and Uthman. So Abi Dharr anhu, that was of those who were known to give fatwa during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, also Omar al-Khattab and Uthman ibn al-Affan. Then also they mentioned regarding that Abi Dharr, of those things that he became known for regarding concerning Ra'asan fi azud, was sidq, wal ilm, wal amal, that he was of those people that stand out, of those people of the one who was like a leader, an example in matters regarding azud, also matter regarding his sidq, also matter regarding ilm, and also al-amal. So he was known for these qualities. And also he mentioned, the person that was very stern regarding the haqq. very stern regarding the haqq. So Abu Dharr anhu, that is this the Sahabi that is mentioned or narrate this hadith. So this hadith is considered to be, compared to most of this hadith, considered to be one of the more lengthy hadith in this series. So one of those hadith that's somewhat lengthy in this hadith that covers very various matters regarding zulm and other matters regarding al-zulm and other matters. The next of the matter they mentioned regarding this particular hadith, the next matter regarding al-takhrij. So we mentioned the Sahabi who's Abu Dharr, Jundub ibn Junada, Ghaffari. As for the takhrij of the hadith, I will mention concerning the takhrij of hadith regarding that some of the sources that have narrated this hadith, so of the Islamic sources that narrated hadith. So regarding a source they mentioned here, Rawahu Muslim. So he mentioned Nawawi, rahimahullah, Rawahu Muslim. So the hadith is collected by Imam Muslim. So of those hadith that is found in Sahih Muslim, not found in Sahih Bukhari. So he mentioned Rawahu Muslim. So this hadith is of those hadith that is mentioned that min afrad Imam Muslim. That this hadith is found in Imam Muslim, not found in Sahih Bukhari. That's concerning what he mentioned in brief regarding the takhrij of this hadith. That at times we'll mention that of those who commented brief regarding this hadith is Busiri. So Busiri, when he mentioned this hadith, or when he is brief like takhrij of hadith, he mentioned at number 5. When he mentioned Rawahu Muslim, Busiri rahimahullah, he mentioned wallaf lahu. So I mean that the hadith, this wording of this hadith is from Imam Muslim. Then I mentioned wa Tirmidhi wa Ibn Majah wa Bayhaqi. So as other sources that have not collected this hadith, other than Imam Muslim in his Sahih, we have At-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, and Bayhaqi. At-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, wal Bayhaqi. So these are of those sources that have also collected or narrated this hadith of Abu Dharr according to the word, according to what is mentioned here. That when we go back to so the hadith is and they mentioned. So we go back to Imam Muslim rahimahullah in his actual book of Imam Muslim, that this hadith that is mentioned by Imam Muslim rahimahullah with different narrations. So Imam Muslim rahimahullah, and also with different asanid. So Imam Muslim rahimahullah, that he narrated his hadith, so he mentioned this hadith first with his isnad, Imam Muslim rahimahullah, with this wording as mentioned here in Al-Arba'in. Then also he mentioned that there's other asanid with similar meaning. So other hadith, though the same hadith, but with different isnad. So he mentioned regarding concerning that, and also of some of those isnad, also they have slight difference in meaning or in wordings. So after hadith, he mentioned the isnad, where it mentioned upon the Prophet قال Rasulullah alayhi salam فيما يروي عن ربه تبارك وتعالى. So mention the one before says another wording of hadith, إني حرمت على نفسي ظلم وعلى عبادي فلا تظالموا. So that's another wording of the hadith that is collected by Imam Muslim. Inni, so in the word that we have here mentioned, Ya ibadi, started by saying Ya ibadi. The other wording of the hadith mentioned, Inni harramtu ala nafsi al-dhulm wa ala ibadi fala tudhalimu. So this is another wording of the hadith. So then he mentioned other similar hadith, but as concerned the hadith that regarding the wording of this hadith, so Imam Muslim rahimahullah, that he mentioned the hadith with a slight difference, another narration on Abu Dharr with a slight difference in wording, So as hadith is as found Imam Muslim rahimahullah. Also you find that Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, that also in his explanation of this hadith, that he mentioned also a brief takrij of hadith, mentioned وهذا hadith خرجه مسلم من رواية سعيد بن عبد العزيز عن ربيعة ابن يزيد عن أبي إدريس خولاني عن أبي ذر الحديث. And other narration that he mentioned, what I mentioned at the end of this hadith, that they mentioned that وفي آخر قال سعيد ابن عبد العزيز كان أبو إدريس خولاني, one of the narrators of hadith, إذا حدث بهذا hadith, whenever he went, so it is Abu Idris Khawlani, whenever he narrated this hadith, قال إذا حدث بهذا hadith جثى على ركبتيه, he will go down on his knees. He will go down on his knees. So he'll fall down on his knees whenever he narrates this hadith. So the practice of Abu Idris Khawlani, that he will do of this act, that he will go down on his knees whenever he narrated this hadith. So the qalat in al-musalsala, we find that musalsala, that whenever sometime a particular hadith, some hadith are read or some hadith are mentioned, that you find that some narrated, they'll perform a particular act. So that also those hadith are called musalsal. So called musalsal by way of an act is usually carried out whenever that hadith is narrated. So that's concerning musalsal. So that's concerning, so this act will be done by Abu Idris Khawlani, that whenever he narrates this hadith, that he'll go down on his knees. He go down on both of his knees. Then also he mentioned that this hadith also in the Tirmidhi with Ibn Majah. But that narration that is mentioned by they mentioned that of At-Tirmidhi, that there's some weakness that with a different wording, so the somewhat different wording of the hadith. Some wordings are consistent and some words are different, but a general meaning of the hadith. But the hadith is somewhat they mentioned. قال At-Tirmidhi, when he mentioned the hadith, قال حديث حسن. And the element that they mentioned that hadith of At-Tirmidhi, somewhat it is criticized based upon one of the narrators in the hadith. So the narration of Tirmidhi with a slight difference in wording, but on the same topic or discussion, but there's a slight because of one of the narrators, that narration is said to be da'if due to Shar ibn Hawshab, that is criticized. And also the hadith, so you have Abi Dharr who have narrated the hadith, but also you'll find others among the Sahaba, as they call concerning that Shawa'id. We'll find that other Sahaba who have narrated this hadith. Amongst them who have narrated this hadith other than Abu Dharr, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. So this hadith that also it is narrated, or hadith of similar meaning of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, also have narrated this hadith, but I mentioned that in that Tabarani. So this hadith in that Tabarani. So Tabarani rahimahullah, that they mentioned Rahu Tabarani fi Awsat wal Kabir. So Tabarani, he has several books in hadith they call Ma'ajim. So of them, Al-Awsat wal-Kabir, that he mentioned this hadith in this collection, in these two collection of At-Tabarani rahimahullah. And I mentioned that Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, illa anna isnadahu da'if. So the narration of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari of this hadith, that its isnad is da'if. The isnad, it is da'if. As they mentioned in the isnad, fihi Abdul Malik ibn Harun. So one narrator's name is Abdul Malik ibn Harun, that he is mentioned, where they mention that there is an agreement regarding that is da'if. That is da'if. So this concerning this hadith that is mentioned here regarding this hadith, regarding concerning the hadith of Abi Dharr. In the Muslim, you have other narration of this hadith. In the Tirmidhi, and also that hadith is criticized. And also, as they said, mutabi', then what they refer to as shawahid, meaning this hadith is narrated from other sahabi, and amongst them Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, but the narration of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, it is da'if. The narration of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, it is da'if. So that's concerning in brief regarding of takhrij of that hadith, in brief regarding takhrij of this hadith. You have other sources that they mention, but we'll just keep it simple for today. So that's concerning the takhrij of that hadith that has been mentioned here of Abi Dharr وتعالى anhu. So as for the next matter to be discussed, that is mentioned regarding concerning Hammiyat hadith. So the Hammiyah, the importance or the status of this hadith. So the manzila of this hadith that have been mentioned. So what have been said by the ulama regarding the importance or relevance of this, the importance of this hadith. It is stated that An-Nawawi rahimahullah, that he mentioned this in his book called Al-Azkar. So An-Nawawi rahimahullah, that he has many books. And some of his books are, alhamdulillah, تبارك وتعالى, that the books of An-Nawawi rahimahullah have somewhat got a lot of acceptance. So of those books that is famous and have a lot of acceptance, by way of a lot of attention is given to those books, by way of them being explained, memorized, and the likes. You find Al-Arba'in, An-Nawawi. Then also another book of his that is famous will be Al-Azkar. So An-Nawawi rahimahullah has a book called Al-Azkar, that he mentioned this book concerning that this book Al-Azkar is mainly regarding supplications and dua to be said in different situations and circumstances. So also that book, a very important book for the Muslim to have in his house in general, regarding what are the azkar, the supplications and the dua to be said in different situations and circumstances, based upon a sunnah. So he mentioned this book in his book Al-Azkar. So he mentioned this book. Then he mentioned, when he stated his hadith called, هذا حديث صحيح روينا في صحيح المسلم وغيره رجال إسناده مني إلى أبي ذر وتعالى كلهم دمشقيون. So of the benefit, they mentioned that all the narrators in the hadith, by the way, they said fawaid of the isnad of the hadith. So of the fawahid of the isnad of this hadith, that all the narrators are from Damashq. All the narrators, Damashqiyun. And I mentioned that even Abi Dharr is placed as Damashqiyun based upon that. فَقَالْ دَخَلَ أَبِي ذَرْ دَمَشْق. That even Abi Dharr, that he also entered Damashq. So all the narrators are from that region, from that city, from that area. So they kind of somewhat, they share this in common. Also out of those things, that fawaid al-hadithiyya, that all the narrators from a particular region or city. So that's concerning also of musalsal. So musalsal of people from the same city narrating this hadith, including Abi Dharr and other narrators. Then I mentioned, ومنها, of the things that he mentioned regarding the benefit of this hadith, that he mentioned, ومنها ما اشتمل عليه من بيان. So of this hadith, what it consists of, it clarifies القواعد عظيمة في أصول الدين, that it explains some of the fundamental principles regarding the deen, وفروع, and also its branch matters, والآداب, it discusses matters regarding the adab, the conduct of the Muslim, واللطائف قلوب, also matter that relates to the person's the heart, وغيرها ولله الحمد, and also other than this. So this hadith, that it consists of concerning matters that relates to the qawaid of the deen, and also its furu and branch, other matters, and also it discusses matters regarding the adab of the Muslim, and also matters that relates to the person's heart. So this hadith kind of somewhat, it consists of various topics. It discusses various matters. Ahmed ibn Hanbal rahimahullah, when he mentioned regarding this particular hadith, فقال Ahmed rahimahullah, that hadith Abi Dharr, as mentioned by Ibn Rajab, he mentioned hadith Abi Dharr, قال Imam Ahmed, هو أشرف hadith لأهل الشام, that is considered to be one of the most noble hadith from the people of Sham, So they showed that regarding concerning this hadith, that have a very great status with the ulama. It have a great status with the ulama. So as we mentioned of those things with the hadith, that of those matters regarding this hadith, that whenever Abu Idris al-Khawlani, that whenever he narrates this hadith, then he would fall down on his knee. He would go down on his knees. It's mentioned regarding that of the ulama mentioned that hadithun azim alayhi madar Islam. So of the ulama were mentioned that this hadith, that is of the madar, that Islam, the foundation of Islam revolves around this hadith. It revolves around this hadith. So this shows the importance of this hadith. It shows the importance and the status of this particular hadith. The next of those matters to be covered regarding this particular hadith, that when the hadith is mentioned or narrated, فقال أن أبي ذر وتعالى عنه أن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام فيما يروي عن ربه عز وجل قال يا عبادي الحديث. So the start of this hadith, it mentioned an Abi Dharr, who is a Sahabi, أن النبي عليه السلام, upon the Prophet عليه السلام, فيما يروي عن ربه. So the main concern is that not with the Prophet Islam, the Prophet Islam is narrating this hadith upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is referred to as Hadith al-Qudsi. So in the Prophet Islam, at times you find some hadith where the Prophet Islam is not the final person, not the final narrator in the hadith. He's one of the narrators, and he will narrate upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those hadith are referred to as Hadith al-Qudsi. They are referred to as Hadith al-Qudsi, and that so regarding concerning hadith and Nawawi, so hadith, I mentioned that the ulama mentioned regarding, as we discussed concerning before, that al-wahi, revelation, is of two types. Revelation is of two types, or fall into two categories. Revelation by way of Quran, that is known. So you have revelation by way of Quran. Just something, just a side matters benefit, that there's a bookshop that they have a copy of Quran that is being sold. Now, this copy that they have, it goes back, it's of the copies of Uthman ibn Affan. There is no harakat on it, it's the old print. Now, it's in 2 volumes. Do you know the price for it? And it's the old print. It's about close to £4,000. Nam, it's in 2 volumes, close to £4,000. That's like the old version. Most people are able to read it because there's no fatha, there's no dhamma. Sometimes the tashin or the dots, they are not there. Now that's the old print. Now that goes back to Uthman ibn Affan وتعالى عنه. Who said that's about 3,000, said £4,000. 3,600. But said it's something that that is maybe collective for people regarding concern that for the heritage, or something classical as they say. So they have a next version that is about just over 300. A next version is about £300. So it have like the old print that goes back to Uthman time. And also they try to write it in or more common, but you can see that a difference even in what the modern day writing. So for example, kana, so you have ka, and then you have noon is down the next page.
Okay.
You understand? So it's like ka, noon is a difference. So kan in the one line, and noon is the next line. They're not combined together. But I'm saying that's the old classical print. So it's not that. So it's no something, but there's something. So it's something that people sometimes they like to have these type of items, type of thing to show concerning that. Just to have a copy and to show regarding it, that we still have the original version or close to original version of the time of Uthman ibn Affan regarding the Quran. Well, that's concerned. So overall, back to what we're discussing. So those are a very old copy of the Quran. Having them is something we said is a treasure to have those things for the person who can afford them. Now, regarding concern to know that's still owed to part of the Islamic heritage and things of and of that the Quran. That preserve the Quran from the old copy, original copies. Then I mentioned here regarding concern. So it said al-wahi, revelation, can be categorized into two categories. Quran being the first, from Surah Al-Fatiha ila Nas, Quran, that is well known. Then the second of revelation is Al-Hadith. So Hadith al-Nabawiyah or Hadith is also a part of revelation. With Hadith, it falls into two categories. So the Hadith is of two categories. The first, Hadith al-Qudsi, that we're discussing. So this is an example of Hadith al-Qudsi where what is being mentioned go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is being mentioned in the Hadith, it goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to the Prophet. So the Prophet is narrating upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not Quran. So it's not Quran, but this is considered to be Hadith al-Qudsi. And the second type of Hadith is Hadith al-Nabawiyah. So Hadith al-Nabawiyah. So regarding concerning Hadith al-Nabawiyah, so Hadith al-Qudsi, I wouldn't say by way of, so Hadith al-Nabawiyah would be concerning ma nukila ilayna an nabiyina Muhammad alayhi salam min aqwali, so what have been transmitted to us, narrated to us upon the Prophet alayhi salam, Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, from his aqwal, from his statements, his actions, the thing that he approved of, and also his description. So that is Hadith al-Nabawiyah. So all of that go back to the Prophet alayhi salam regarding things that either he has said, done, approved of, or his description. So that's Hadith al-Nabawiyah. And so that's considered the second type of Hadith. And going back to the first type. So you found the first type, which is Hadith al-Qudsi. Hadith al-Qudsi, then that's a second category of Hadith. But these Hadith, it goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to the Prophet alayhi salam. He's narrating the Prophet alayhi salam, he's narrating upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Hadith al-Qudsi. So Hadith al-Qudsi, so you have the word Hadith and you have Qudsi, go back to the word al-Qudsi, go back to nisbat ila al-Quds, which is al-Tuhur, something which is pure. So is for Hadith al-Qudsi, that what is defined as in the ulama, huwa ma nukila ilayna an Nabi al-Islam mal isnadihi iyaha ila Rabbi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what has been defined, you have different definition that is given regarding what is Hadith al-Qudsi, but of those definition, ma nukila ilayna and Nabi al-Islam, what have been transmitted to us by the way of the Prophet al-Islam, with his isnad, going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or I mention كل ما رواه نبي الإسلام عن ربي سبحانه وتعالى عن ربه سبحانه وتعالى. So everything that the Prophet Islam have transmitted or narrated going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala other than Quran, that is Hadith al-Qudsi. It's not Quran. It is not Quran. So that's concerning what is referred to as Hadith al-Qudsi. That goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is not of the Quran but from revelation. A discussion that they have regarding Hadith al-Qudsi, which is, that's what I said, we found that of contemporary times, of recent, a more of a discussion on this topic. We find that many, when they write in the field of Hadith, especially those in Hadith by way of Ilm al-Mustalah or Ulum al-Hadith, that when they discuss regarding Hadith al-Qudsi, the difference between Hadith, they discuss concerning Hadith al-Qudsi or Hadith al-Nabawiyah, that what is mentioned by many regarding Hadith al-Qudsi, they'll have a discussion regarding Hadith al-Qudsi. They mention that ما نقل إلينا or ما نقل إلينا من كلام الله, what have been transmitted to us by the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speech, لفظا ومانا. Is Hadith, so the discussion is Hadith al-Qudsi, the wording and the meaning, is it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They say lafdan wa mana. So laf means the wording and mana, the meaning, does both go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the wording is from the Prophet of Islam and the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Clear? What the discussion is. So Hadith al-Qudsi, what is the correct position is the wordings and the meaning go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that both wording and meaning goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to the Prophet. He's just a narrator. So it's not narrating thing based upon his wording, but the wording of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as given to him. The wording and the meaning. Or so that's one, and or those who took, or those of the position that regarding the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the wording, the word that is used in the hadith is from the Prophet Islam. So the Prophet Islam, he has the meaning, but the wording is from himself. And that second opinion is mentioned by many in contemporary times. As to Hadith al-Qudsi, is the wording and the meaning go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? And because of this, you have like a discussion regarding, a discussion regarding what's the correct position on this. Of those things that kind of somewhat, you might find a many, even say the people of the Sunnah, that if you ask them regarding that Hadith al-Qudsi, the wording and the meaning, does it go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They might say no. But they will say rather, the meaning go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wording is from the Prophet Islam. Even though that opinion is not the stronger opinion. But it's mentioned by many or by some. And of those, somewhat, so you find that of contemporary times with the Mashaykh of Ahl Sunnah that have somewhat mentioned that understanding of Hadith al-Qudsi, that the meaning go back to Allah and the wording go back to the Prophet Islam. Of those who have mentioned this in several places in their books, Salih ibn Uthaymeen, Muhammad ibn Salih ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala. So Ibn Uthaymeen, like in some of his books in Hadith, he would mention that Hadith al-Qudsi, the wording go back to Allah and the meaning the wording go back to the Prophet and the meaning go back to Allah. And he mentioned it in a few of his books. In his Sharh of Arba'in, he discussed this matter. So in his explanation of Arba'in and Nawawi, in this explanation of his, he can somewhat discuss this matter. We mentioned that, he mentioned قد اختلف العلماء. So he mentioned, he said قد اختلف العلماء رحمهم الله في اللفظ الحديث القدسي, regarding the wording of Hadith al-Qudsi. هل هو كلام الله, is the wording from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أو أن الله أوحى إلى رسول عليه السلام معناه, or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have revealed to the Prophet its meaning, وَلَفْظُهُ لَفْظُ رَسُولٍ, and the meaning is from the Prophet, or the meaning is from, or the wording is from the Prophet alayhi salam. So he mentioned that discussion, but some of his other books in Mustalah is explicit that lafdan is from the Prophet and the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his books in Mustalah. So you find some who have taken on that opinion. Then they mention ala qawlayn. So they mention قد اختلف العلماء. So they mention there's two opinions on this. There's two opinions on this. فقال, then they mention two opinions regarding أما الحديث القدسي من عند الله لفظه ومعناه. That hadith al-Qudsi, that is wording and its meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then they mention وقول الثاني أن الحديث القدسي معناه من عند الله ولفظه لفظ نبي الإسلام وذلك لوجهين. Then they mention that regarding that the second opinion, that the wording from the Prophet of Islam and the meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he kind of somewhat mention min wajhayn, then he kind of somewhat puts forth some reason for the second opinion. So he more kind of somewhat give like the dalil for the second opinion, not for the first. Nam? So you find, so based upon this, you find some that have adopted or have taken on the view from Ahl Sunnah, from Tullab al-Ilm, that Hadith al-Qudsi, that the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wordings is from the Prophet of Islam. We mentioned that of those who have researched this matter, so you have some research on this matter, that have come to the conclusion regarding that opinion is incorrect. That opinion is incorrect. And you find that majority of the ulama of content, they even mentioned that the one who have done some work on this, they mentioned that his name is Abdul Rahman ibn Fad Wad'an al-Dawsari, that he have done some work on this matter or some a research on this matter, where general conclusion they mentioned not of the ulama of past and the ulama, and majority of the ulama of contemporary time is of the view that the wording and the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wording and the meaning. So they mention that. So either of the ulama of the past, especially because that are present, that they have either explicitly mentioned this, or by way of indirectly, it can be understood from them that they are of that opinion, that the wording and the meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he mentioned some names that he mentioned Imam Bukhari, Ibn Qayyim, Al-Jawzi, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and others that he have mentioned who is of this opinion of contemporary, that he mentioned of those Muhammad Amin and Shinkiti, Sahib al-Adwa al-Bayan, that is the opinion that the wording and the meaning of Hadith al-Qudsi goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to the Prophet of Islam. So you have Muhammad Amin and Shinkiti. Of those, Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz have mentioned that clearly, that both wording and meaning go back to the Prophet, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also amongst those of also of those who mentioned Hamad al-Ansari. So you have a Sheikh Hamad al-Ansari, maybe not known, but he's known concerning the field of Hadith. And also of those of the Mashaykh, of the ulama, that used to put a lot of emphasis regarding collecting makhtut, manuscripts. Because the person of Hadith, so he put a lot of emphasis regarding collecting of makhtut, works that are manuscript. So Sheikh Ahmad Ansari, also of that opinion, that the wording and the meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also he mentioned of those that Sheikh Fawzan, also of that view, that words and meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Raji, one of the students of Sheikh bin Baz, and also Sheikh Gunayman, Sheikh Abdullah Gunayman. So of those, though, you have many of contemporaries of the ulama who's of the view that Hadith al-Qudsi, the wording and the meaning goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, contrary to the other view. Also the person here you mentioned that some of his mashaykh or some of that the matter was put to Ibn Uthaymeen, and he came back from that view. That he came back from this view. So he mentioned that some of his students have mentioned that no, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, that he came back from his view that on this matter, and he mentioned some name of those who have mentioned this, and other names of mashaykh who have that opinion. So he mentioned that Ibn Uthaymeen, that with munaqasha, with some discussion between him and others of the mashaykh, that he came back from that view. He came back from that view that Hadith al-Qudsi, that the wording is from the Prophet of Islam and the meaning goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He came back to the view that both wording and meaning goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of that view is still out there and championed. And sometimes in these masail, we said that on certain things, and you might find a person might of the thing to want to be mindful of a talib, that there are certain masail that a person still required to do further research. Because sometimes a person, an alim of the sunnah, An alim that is known, credible, may take opinion, but the person, he just take what has been said by way of a fatwa or a statement of that alim, but never really go beyond what is there, go beyond, look into the matter further. With me? So there's certain masala that are like this. So a person might say, in this masala, alim fulan said this, and that's it. He becomes somewhat narrow regarding, become close-minded regarding, because this alim said this, khalas. Without knowing concerning, and without per se looking into matters, say, is that alim opinion even correct or not? And what is dalil? But he can so, and also for him to see as the talib, that also to look to see, is there a greater discussion on this matter? What's been said on this matter? Of the ulama of past, and also of those of present. So certain masala are very important, that for the talib, not just let us take what is said as fatwa by one alim and kind of somewhat close his mind and his eyes to everything else. Then that's problematic. Now, so that's not per se real research. So you might find a lot of people sometimes, because they state in the book of alim fulan, then that's it. The matter is closed. When the matter is still an open matter, still requires further research and discussion. So those things to be mindful of. So you might find that if you go online and pass the data of those who have discussed regarding Hadith al-Qudsi from the previous, you might find that most of the opinion might be what has been mentioned by Ibn Uthaymeen. You might find that those who may still align to the view of Ibn Uthaymeen, and even sometimes not aware that there's many others who have a different opinion. Now, where the conclusion the person mentioned, that also this matter is mentioned regarding after the discussion, that opinion is that of the Asha'ira. Now, that opinion in detail, in looking at the matter regarding the Hadith al-Qudsi, that just the wording is from the Prophet and the meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a position of the Asha'ira, because of their position regarding Al-Quran and Kalamullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, would have a deviated idea on that matter. So they mentioned regarding concerning that, ختاما لهذه الرسالة, so the person he mentioned in conclusion, ختاما لهذه الرسالة أقول لقد تبين من خلال ما تقدم نقله عن أهل العلم رحمه الله تعالى أن حديث القدسي كلام الله لفظا ومعنى. That he said at the conclusion that, and from what had been mentioned by the different of the ulama, of the people of ilm, that their conclusion that Hadith al-Qudsi, that both the meaning and the wording is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأن هذا قول صحيح, and that is the correct position. فقد نص عليه جمع كثير من العلماء السابقين والمتأخرين. That also you find that many of the ulama of the past and the present who have held or taken this position. بل ظاهر أن عليه إجماع السلف رحمه الله. That is what seems apparent, that this is the ijma of the salaf, an agreement of the salaf. وأن القول بأن الحديث القدسي كلام نبي الإسلام, that as for the position that Hadith al-Qudsi, that is the speech of our Prophet al-Islam, lafdan wa ma'nahu min Allah, that the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qawlun da'if, it's a weak position. Mukhalif lima alayhi as-salaf rahimahullah, that in contradiction to what the salaf were upon. Then he mentioned, bal al-zahir annahu qawl muhtara, is a somewhat a fabricated, a newly invented position. لم يظهر القول به إلا بعد زمن الطويل بعد القرون المفضلة. That this qawl didn't per se came about until long after the time of the Salaf, the time of the golden years. Wallahu ta'ala, so that's concerning its final conclusion. So the general gist of what we're saying, that there's issues that are taking place or masail that still require further discussion. And sometimes I find that some may take to a position and they become somewhat fixed at a position, and they're not willing to hear anything else, even the matter which is still open for discussion. But they see it's a matter which is close to any discussion other than the position that they have taken. Based upon them, I say, Sheikh Fulan, I've taken his position. So fact that we have Sheikh Fulan has stated that position, then khalas, the matters have ended. There's no other opinion or no other discussion. But without them even themselves knowing the position of Sheikh Fulan. and even study the matter independently. So there's sometimes that sometimes to be mindful of these discussions, and a person sometimes may even be unaware of that there's actually even discussion. Sometimes a person may not be even aware that certain matters they actually a discussion, because they haven't read beyond, they haven't read outside a limited scope. Clear? And that's sometimes problematic. Another problem. So sometimes for the talib, said within even Ahl Sunnah, they are not aware. We find that in some of the sciences, we find that aqwal of mukhalif is now included in the books of usul al-fiqh, tafsir, hadith, mustalah. You have the aqwal of mukhalif are now included in these books that is not really from that science and should be accepted. But sometimes it is missed. Sometimes a person, because it's mentioned, repeated in certain books, it is sometimes missed that these things are not really from that science or represent that science. So if I find in Hadith, you have that discussion. Usul al-fiqh, you have that discussion. Tafsir, you have that discussion. So for the person, but then sometimes because the person lack of awareness, doesn't know the matter in depth. So he read the book that is in front of him, he believes that everything in it, that's what represents that science. And there's no comparison, especially concerning of those of the ulama of the past. So those are things to be mindful of. And you find that in many things. So for example, in Aqidah. In Aqidah, an example. That most of the books that are studied in Aqidah today are what? Books of the ulama of mutaakhir. You with me? The books of the ulama of more recent time. That the books of the ulama of old, or their books are considered to be the usul of the Aqidah, those books are missed, even though they are available. Even though they are available, they are somewhat missed. So sometimes a person is just unaware. Sometimes you have those who are unaware because of what are the various factors. But overall, the thing is that concern to know that for a talib never to cease from research and investigation and bahth. That's the source of the talib. He's always investigating, searching, reading, seeing what is, you understand what needs further, what needs to be looked in more in depth than what is being given. So that's concerning this matter. But we can somewhat so a shahid regarding concerning Hadith al-Qudsi, that the correct position of Ahl Sunnah, the correct position that Hadith al-Qudsi, that lafz al-amana min indillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that both the wording and the meaning from Allah, and it is clear that it's not the Quran, as Quran, Fatiha, through to Nas. Then the books. Then as Ibn Uthaymeen and others will discuss regarding concerning matters regarding tafriq, what's the difference between Hadith al-Qudsi wa Hadith al-Quran, and Hadith and the difference between Hadith al-Qudsi wa Hadith al-Nabawiyah. So you have that also a part of discussion that or the discussion is making that distinction between Hadith al-Qudsi and Hadith and Quran, and making a distinction between Hadith al-Qudsi and Hadith al-Nabawiyah. So that also would be discussed in some of those books. Also the Hadith al-Qudsi, that is held to the same standards regarding distinguishing whether it is authentic or not. So from a Hadith being Qudsi doesn't mean automatically Sahih. Clear? So Hadith al-Qudsi is after fulfill the condition, after fulfill the condition that have been set regarding Hadith al-Sahih. So Hadith al-Qudsi, that may be da'if. Hadith al-Qudsi, that is authentic, based upon it being critiqued as in the rules of Hadith science, So I mentioned that some of the narration of Abu Musa al-Ashri is of Hadith al-Qudsi, but we say it is da'if because of one of the narrator is criticized. So the same rules that applies to Hadith in general, Hadith al-Nabawiyah, The same rule applies regarding Hadith al-Qudsi, regarding they have to be verified and to be checked regarding their authenticity. Hadith al-Qudsi also is of those hadith that they are less in number to Hadith and Nabawiyah. So the large bulk of Ahadith that we have in Islam is by way of Hadith and Nabawiyah. That goes back to the Prophet ﷺ regarding his speech, his action, what he approved of, and his description. Hadith al-Qudsi is, some ulama said, it is less in number, very less in number. So the number doesn't exceed, some book could have like 200 and plus. Some go up to about 300. So Hadith al-Qudsi doesn't exceed 300. As according to some books. So some book could have about 270, 280 of that number, about that. So they said 300 or just over. Hadith al-Qudsi is not said vast in number. So they're still in just a few hundreds in number. So that's considered Hadith al-Qudsi. And you have also some ulama who have collected books regarding Hadith al-Qudsi. So you have certain books that you have certain books and you still have different works that are being done of those that passed, and you have contemporaries who have tried to collect Hadith al-Qudsi. So you have some works regarding Hadith al-Qudsi. So with that inshallah ta'ala, coming to 7 o'clock, inshallah ta'ala we'll end for today regarding this Hadith, and continue next week on this next regarding discussion of this Hadith. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه السبيل والآخر الحمد لله آمين. أيوة.
You still have time for questions.
What is it?
What is the difference between Quran and Qudsi then?
Hadith al-Qudsi. The Quran is simplified from Hadith al-Qudsi. Quran, what between al-Fatiha ila nas. That's Quran. Anything that is attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outside of Quran, Hadith al-Qudsi. By way of Hadith.
So then why would it be separate?
It comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it separate. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech is not restricted only to the Quran. So also you have by way of Hadith al-Qudsi. So in some narration, the Prophet also made a distinction. That as for Quran, he would clarify to the Sahaba, this is Quran. So said in what we have today, from Al-Fatiha to Nas, Quran, which is well known. Outside this, that have been transmitted upon the Prophet is said to be Hadith al-Qudsi, where the Prophet said, قال ربي عز وجل يروي أن. So you can make that distinction also. Clear?
Is it right to say?
And you have other differences. You have the ahkam regarding, you have other things they mentioned regarding Hadith al-Qudsi. Regarding Hadith al-Quran of the ulama concerned, the person must be regarding certain differences that Hadith al-Quran above manzila, which is above that of Hadith al-Qudsi.
So you could say the Quran is a lot more important than Qudsi.
About the kalam is about ayah status. They have ayah status. So I said ayah by way, for example, with the Quran, that the ulama mentioned that is mu'jiz, that it's like, but also I think they mentioned different things that they mentioned in the Quran, that with the Quran, after the view of the ulama, a person cannot touch the Quran except in a state of tahara. But with Hadith Qudsi, then those rules does not apply. Those rules does not apply. So a person might have a book of Hadith al-Qudsi and want to read it and he's not in a state of tahara, then there's no harm at all and no discussion. But with the Quran, they have a discussion. Is this allowed for a person to read the Quran without being in a state of tahara? But those are said of those things that are.
Is it right?
And also Hadith al-Qudsi, you cannot read in your salah. So you cannot read a Hadith al-Qudsi in your salah.
Is it right to say so the Prophet ﷺ, if the Hadith al-Qudsi is the word is directly spoken to Rasulullah ﷺ, not like through Jibril.
It can be through Jibril.
Okay.
Could be through. So that still could occur through Jibril alayhi salam. As the revelation either at times through Jibril. So also I mentioned Hadith Qudsi could also be the same.
And then another question from that is every single ayah in the Quran transmitted through Jibril then to Muhammad?
Not every single. You have other Sahabas, so you have other angels who have brought other ayah.
So it would always be through the angel?
It means so to be so that It will be through an angel. In most parts, it will be through an angel.
And with Qudsi, there could be one or two that's directly from Allah.
It could be. Aywa.
So Sheikh, you said most of the Quran. Is there like exceptions?
I mean, most of the Quran.
Yeah, most or all of
Now,
it.
listen, you have other angels who have brought ayat, that you have Jibreel is the main source. Now, so you might find other angels sometimes may bring certain verses, but also Jibreel may also repeat those verses.
So all the time it will be through an angel.
It will be through an angel. So the reference said it will be through an angel. It will be through an angel. And the main one will be Jibreel alayhi salam. Aywa. So that inshallah ta'ala will end and continue next week. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq.